Here's another awkward one. Surahs 1241 and 2071 mention crucifixion in Egypt during Joseph's and Moses' time. The problem? Crucifixion didn't exist until the Persians introduced it in the 6th century BC, centuries after Moses and Joseph. Some Muslim apologists argue this could mean impalement or affixing to poles, but that's not a method of execution known at that time either. They often insist that the Quran is flawless, no contradictions, no inconsistencies, no historical errors. But the truth is, there's a bunch of historical skeletons in the Quran's closet. For starters, Surah 1220 claims that Joseph's brothers sold him for a few dirhams. Problem, dirhams didn't exist in Joseph.
They didn't exist, y'all. What in the world? How did the all-powerful, almighty Allah not even know what type of money they had, man? What's really going on? Was he thinking in the future? Days of future past, X-Men type stuff? I'm just trying to figure out, like everybody else, why the Quran has so many issues. Now, this is just the first one. I can't wait till it gets to the rest of them. I can't wait till it gets to talking about Mary, you know what I'm saying, and not being a sister of Aaron. I can't wait till this brother gets to talking about how chainmail, if he starts talking about chainmail, I don't know. But chainmail and how that wasn't invented yet, or crucifixion, or the Samaritan that wasn't even a nation or a people at the time, but yet they were somehow making a golden calf before they were even here. I can't wait for all that, y'all. Y'all in for a good show. Shout out to Testify. If you're not following that brother Testify, you need to be following this brother because this brother got some amazing videos, y'all. Amazing videos and some dope live streams where he invites people to come up and have these type of conversations so you don't think he's just hiding behind these particular videos. He's out there in the forefront. Let's get back to it.
Joseph's time. This coin, a derivative of the Greek drachma, wouldn't show up until the 12th century BC. A good 7 centuries after Joseph. Some Muslim apologists argue that dirham just means a weight, not a coin. But let's be real, the verse clearly suggests currency, and we got nada about dirhams being coins used in ancient Egypt. Now compare that to the New Testament, which doesn't slip up on these details. It accurately names coins like drachma, stater, and denarius, even getting their values right. So while the Quran's handling of ancient currency leaves us scratching our heads, the New Testament shows that it knows its ancient coins like a numismatist. Next up, Surah 34, 10 through 11 tells us that David crafted chainmail with a little divine assistance. The problem, chainmail wasn't invented until the 5th century BC by the Celts, a solid 5 centuries after David's time. Some Muslim apologists say that chainmail here might just refer to any old iron-linked armor, but the verse specifies perfectly balanced links.
And the Quran itself has many different translations where this is to be true. Actually, matter of fact, let's go look at that real quick. So here we go. We have the Quran, exactly what that brother told us. And by the way, I actually have a video that I reacted to with Dr. J. Smith and Alpha D that actually got into this a little bit more in depth. But we see it right here. Indeed, we granted David a great privilege from us, commanding old mountains echo his hymns and the birds as well. We made iron malleable for him. So let's come home and read down. Instructing, make full-length armor, perfectly balance the links, and the work righteousness, O family of David. Indeed, I am seeing of what you do. So we can see right here, commanding him to make full coats of mail and calculate precisely the links. So we see right there, commanding, make thou coats of mail, balancing the rings of chain armor. So we see right there again. And these are different translations from Muslim folks, not Christian apologists. This is Quran.com, y'all. Saying make your perfect coats of mail and balance well rings of chain armor. So we got the Al-Ali Khan, Yusuf Ali, Sahih International. You know what I'm saying? It's all right there. Let's get back to the video, though.
Which lines up with the chainmail technology that came much later. Now, let's stack this against the Bible, which doesn't stumble on the timeline. Take the Teledan Stele, a 9th century BC inscription discovered in northern Israel. It mentions the House of David, providing the earliest extra-biblical evidence of David's dynasty in confirming his historical impact soon after his lifetime. While the Bible's record of David lines up with real-world findings, the Quran's take on David's armor seems to jump the gun historically. But it gets worse. Surah 20:35 through 88 in verse 95 has a Samaritan leading Israel astray after Exodus. But the Samaritans didn't exist until the 8th century BC, long after Moses' time. Some Muslims try to sidestep this by saying Samari is just a personal name, but that doesn't work. Historically, the term is tied to the Samaritans. Compare that to the Bible, which gets the timing and tensions right. Luke 9:51 talks about how Samaritans rejected Jesus on his way from Galilee to Jerusalem, a real-life friction that actually fits the era. Josephus even describes Samaritans attacking Jewish pilgrims from Galilee on their way through Samaria. So while the Quran misses by centuries, the Bible nails the context, showing historical accuracy instead of an awkward timeline slip-up. Here's another awkward one. Surahs 1241 and 2071 mention crucifixion in Egypt during Joseph's and Moses' time. The problem? Crucifixion didn't exist until the Persians introduced it in the 6th century BC, centuries after Moses and Joseph. Some Muslim apologists argue this could mean impalement or affixing to poles, but that's not a method of execution known at that time either. Contrast this with the Bible. The Gospel's crucifixion narrative even nails the small details. In John 19:12, the Jewish crowd taunts Pilate, "If you release this man, you're not Caesar's friend." This struck a nerve because, as Philo notes, Pilate had already angered Tiberius Caesar by setting up golden shields in Jerusalem, earning a sharp rebuke. The crowd's taunt pressured Pilate to comply, fearing further backlash from Rome. While the Quran's timeline slips up, the Bible stays on point with history. Another big blunder is in Surah 930, where the Quran claims that Jews call Ezra or Uzair.
I can't believe I forgot this one. I cannot believe this one is my favorite of all time, because nobody has ever been able to show me that any Jews believe this. Now, if you do a quick Google search, you'll see that, first and foremost, no Jews believe this. But if you keep looking and searching, you'll see that some people talk about these Maccabee Jews or some other sort of sect of Jews that quote unquote believe this. And in actuality, you can't really find anything on these people. So it seems like this was just something that may have been put into the internet, like anything else that's not true, but has been used to try to bolster some claims that we see from different sources like the Quran. Now, I don't know that to be true. That might just be me speculating. I ain't gonna lie, I ain't gonna hold you. I'm gonna be honest with you. But when it comes to any sort of theological work, when it comes to any sort of historical understanding or papers that are on this, never have I ever. I got Jewish brothers that say that this has never been a thing either. I don't know of any Jew that believes this. So what's really going on, man? What's really going on? Why the Quran gets so many things wrong? Why is Allah making so many things up? And I'm saying this in a manner that, yes, it may seem like I'm being, jovial or childish or whatever you may want to say, but ultimately it's out of concern, because when you really get down to it, and this book is supposed to be eternal, this book is supposed to be the perfect word of Allah, but yet there's this many blunders, even if there was one, because it's supposedly the eternal word again of Allah. It's supposed to be perfect in all its ways. There shouldn't be one, but yet there's this many that you cannot account for, that you have to try to cope with. Come on now, open your eyes, really understand what's going on here. And what's going on is this book obviously is not from God, especially when you get to the facts that it completely contradicts the books prior. That's a whole nother thing. That's Islamic dilemma thing, but historically inaccurate when it comes to the script. So hopefully you guys just come up out of the nonsense that you guys are in when it comes to the Muslim faith and see what's really going on here. Again, shout out to my brother Testify. If you're not, follow this brother. Let's get back to the video.
The Son of God, like Christians do with Jesus. But Judaism's strict monotheism never saw Ezra that way. There's zero historical evidence. Some apologists speculate that Uzair might refer to a different figure or a fringe belief in 7th century Arabia, but that's pure guesswork. Contrast this to John 4:22, where Jesus tells the Samaritan woman, "You worship what you do not know." Sounds harsh and maybe even a bit racist, but he's pointing to a real historical issue. According to Josephus, Antiquities 12:5-1, the Samaritans once renamed their temple on Mount Gerizim after Zeus to avoid conflict with Antiochus, blending pagan elements into their worship. Unlike the Quran's claim about Jewish beliefs, this is a concrete reference to an actual spiritual compromise. Are you bad with names? Well, the Quran is too. Surah 1928 calls Mary Mother of Jesus, the sister of Aaron, while Surah 66:12 names her after her father Amram, confusing her with Miriam, Moses' sister. Apologists argue that sister could mean descendant.
Nope.
Culturally, sister implies the same era.
Error.
Then we have Haman in Egypt, a Persian official from Esther's time, placed in Pharaoh's court with Moses, which is way off timing and geography-wise.
Ooh.
And then in Surah 19:7, the Quran claims that no one had the name John before John the Baptist. Yet the Old Testament lists a bunch of Johns. Apologists say first just...
Hold on, let's go look at them names, though. Let's go look at them names real quick, y'all. Dang. Sheesh. What's really going on here, y'all? What's really going on, man? I mean, the facts is there. The facts is there. The truth is there. And unfortunately, there's still going to be so many people that are going to fight, scratch, and claw, and say, ah, man, and try to deflect from what this video is actually talking about. They don't really want to get into it, which is unfortunate. But there will be some, and I pray that there are some, whether it's watching the original video from Testify or catching this video, that really see the issues with what's going on here.
Bunch of Johns. Apologists say first just means unique, but early scholars like Ibn Abbas took it literally. John was supposedly the very first one with that name. Contrast this with the Bible, which nails the historical context. Scholar Luke Vandewey argues that the Gospel's naming patterns reveal real historical roots. Using lots of data from Jewish names from first century Palestine, he shows that the most common names in the Gospels, like Simon, John, Joseph, and Mary, line up with the top names at the time. Jewish names in other regions, like Egypt, often greatly differed. This points to people who were plugged into that culture, not later forgers making things up. And for more on this naming argument, Inspiring Philosophy has a terrific video, which I'll link in a pinned comment. Be sure to check it out. All of this is just the tip of the iceberg. The Quran's historical blunders make it very difficult to call it flawless. Meanwhile, the Bible's details consistently hold up under scrutiny.
Yo, man, shout out to the brother Testify for that video. Now, one thing I wish he would have talked about a little bit, but I know why he didn't, because it was talking about the errors in the Quran. Because what's going to happen is there's going to be Muslims in the comments that are like, oh, well, what about king? The Quran got it right. The Bible got it wrong. They was calling at the time of Joseph's Pharaoh when no, they was kings at the time. The Quran got that right. What about that? What about that? Completely negating the rest of the historical errors that are in there. They're like, well, at least we got that one right. But did you? Let's look at what the Quran says real quick. Folks, I just got a question. I may be reaching. I don't know. But I'm here to ask y'all, because y'all say that, the Quran's super accurate and whatnot, at least when it comes to this point, because we already just debunked the fact that it's not accurate in those other 16 points or however many points that were brought up. So Surah 50:20. Before them, the people of Noah denied the truth, as did the people of the water pit. And we got all the translations that you can look at. The people of Noah, Nuh, and the dwellers of Ras, and the Thamud. And then it comes here to Surah 50:13. And this is where my confusion's at. And then it breaks down to some mofo. It says Ad, and then Pharaoh, and then the kinfolk of Lot. Now, my issue is, who is this Pharaoh here? I could be wrong. It could just be a type of people. I don't know who they are. If you know who they are, let me know down below. But the issue would be, when it comes to the Quran, if they're naming Pharaoh, and it seems like they're coming in chronological order, because the people of Noah, way, way back in the day, and it seems like it's coming up closer. So then we see Pharaoh, and then we see the kinfolk of Lot. So Pharaoh is before the kinfolk of Lot. Lot was around the same time period in which the pharaohs would have been called kings. So why in the world are they having this title here, Pharaoh? That's kind of confusing to me. And I wanted to look into this a little bit more. And I just wanted to look at the Tafsir real quick, and we can look at the Tafsir. And the Tafsir doesn't say nothing about the Pharaoh here. It kind of just skips that. So it talks about the people that were before, and it talks about the stories that they're in. You know what I'm saying? It's brother and Lot, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, to whom Lot was sent. Allah exalted, shook the earth. It didn't bring up the Pharaoh, though. Why is Ibn Kathir not bringing up the people? Tuba, king of Yemen. Maybe this is the people. Maybe this is what they're referring to when they're talking about Pharaoh. But I'm trying to figure this out. Now, with that being said, don't let this distract you also from the fact that we can actually show and prove many different ways that the Bible isn't inaccurate when it talks about the kings and or Pharaoh understanding. But let's look at some other sources to prove that. Great article from Armstrong Institute of Biblical Archaeology, and it breaks down in amazing ways how the king issue isn't an issue when it comes to the Bible. So we're not going to actually look too much into this, but I just want to show you guys that if you guys wanted to, bam, right here, check out the source, look into it, see what's going on. But let's go ahead on and look at the Bible again real quick. So if you read that article, it actually breaks down many different ways that you can show that that arguments that Muslims use doesn't really make sense. And one of them is this particular argument. So let's read real quick. We're here in Genesis 40. And it says in verse 1, now it happened that after these things, the cupbearer and the baker for the king of Egypt offered their Lord. The king of Egypt and Pharaoh was furious with his two officials. So, when it comes to the Bible and how it's talking about the kings and pharaohs, they use the word interchangeably. And even if you didn't want to take that approach, another part of the article talks about how the person who is writing the Torah, Moses, in his time, they were pharaohs. There would be no issue with him interchangeably using king and pharaoh when it comes to him writing about the people. So you take all that and you put together and see that the Bible isn't inaccurate. And the Bible is actually very accurate when it comes to the archaeological understanding of things, much like Brother Testify even put in his video with all the things that the Bible gets right. But yet, even if there are certain issues when it comes to historical matters, stuff like that, there are still people who wrote the Bible. The Bible is divinely inspired. What the Bible is not and has never claimed to be is the perfect, eternal, unchanging word of Allah. Never has it ever. So when you try to compare apples to pineapples like that, and you see that, man, one is coming from this guy who's supposedly all knowing, but yet doesn't know these historical issues going on, there's a huge gaping issue there, much like the Islamic dilemma as a whole. It's just crumbling. So hopefully, if you're a Muslim and you're watching this, you actually take this and really look into the facts that there should be absolutely no reason why your God gets these things wrong. With that being said, God bless y'all. Catch y'all next time. I'm out.